So around this time in the last project, some students can start to feel uncomfortable with the high level of uncertainty. This project is really open-ended. There are infinite possible answers to it, and we're applying these new tools. So, so the first thing to address is just why does the project have this high level of uncertainty? And there are a few good reasons. One is that it's best for learning, as demonstrated by a lot of good research. If we simply follow the professor through solving one of these problems and then complete a really similar formulaic problem in our exams or homework, the fluency of the professor can seem like our fluency, but it really isn't. It turns out that you actually learn much more when you struggle with one of these problems. It feels like you're learning less because you're struggling, because the gaps are more obvious, but good research shows you're actually learning more. And it's particularly true that when the understanding you gain resolves uncertainty, your brain keeps that information. It thinks it must be important. So learning is one of the main reasons. Another reason is that this is preparation for real life. So your role in our society will be all about solving these tough, open-ended problems. You'll basically never be asked to do something that is essentially a homework problem. That could be turned into code. So because this is what students like us do when we got in the real world, we have to get comfortable with it. And this is a really good opportunity to apply a growth mindset. If we don't feel like our understanding is strong enough of the technical content in the course, we just keep practicing with it and we will get better. And the same thing is true for our response to the uncertainty. If we keep working on trying to have a productive response, over time, we'll get better at handling uncertainty. So one piece of how to respond to uncertainty is an intellectual framing. Try to think about it as something more fun and exciting, like a mystery, an adventure, exploration. And all of these things usually begin with a lack of knowledge and maybe confusion, but end with a great understanding and success. So in this case, we'll think about what is it that we care about? What are we trying to understand? What do we already understand? And what tools do we have available to us? And then we try to connect these things logically through deduction. And if it first looks like there are big gaps or big problems that we don't have tools to address, think about how we can break those up into smaller ones. And usually, eventually, if we break them up enough, we will find something that we can solve. And as we solve each one, we will begin to unravel the whole mystery. There's also an emotional content to uncertainty that's important to address and think about. And I think it's helpful to think about what uncertainty really means. So we think about all possible outcomes of a situation. If we're really certain, then the probability distribution in that space is narrow. That is, the most probable outcomes lie in some constrained region. Uncertainty means that the probability distribution is wider. So for some things, it means they're less likely to happen. And for other things, it means they're more likely to happen. We're less certain about where we'll end up on this. Now, if we dwell mostly on the tails, on the bad side of the possible outcomes, then we can become fearful. And our primate brains do not think well when we are anxious or afraid. And that makes us more likely to end up towards the negative set of outcomes. And we're much better off if we spend our time thinking about the tails on the positive side. For example, thinking about how your robot might pull so much weight that people can't even believe it. Or that at the end of this project, you understand this particular thing you really want to learn as well as anybody else in the class. Or that you the stunt or concept that you want to incorporate visually, stylistically into your design will get a good reaction from your peers. appreciation or maybe laughs. If we think about these kinds of things, we start to get excited. And then we take the steps that are needed to achieve them and be successful. So when you're faced with uncertainty, it's best to go with your hopes rather than your fears.